Howdy y'all, it's now the 5-year anniversary of Mario's 35th anniversary. Add them together and that makes this game now 40 years old. Okay, not quite yet, but shut up. Practically single-handedly saving the video game industry as a whole, being the first entry in the best-selling game series of all time, if you don't count these two, which I don't. Undoubtedly being many people's favorite childhood game. Not mine though. In case you couldn't tell by my youthful voice, I wasn't exactly gaming back in 1985. No, my introduction to the series was New Super Mario Bros. On the DS. I poured a good many hours into this back in the day, not only being the first Mario game I ever played, but one of the first games I ever played in general. And I still think it holds up incredibly well to this day. I'd love to make a video on it, but I don't have a way to record footage off my 3DS, and there's no way I'm gonna sit like this for hours on end, so we're just gonna stick with the original today. You know how modern systems today have a main menu that boots up whenever you power it on? This is what the NES's looked like. Okay, I'm kidding, but it might as well be the truth. This double cart of Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt was a packing game for the NES. So essentially, everyone who had the console had this cartridge to go alongside it. The first thing that countless Nintendo Entertainment Systems ever displayed was this screen right here. That's pretty neat. Also, thanks to this being a pack-in title, it's also one of the easiest and cheapest NES games to get a hold of. I bought my copy for like $5 and the manual for like another $5. It doesn't get any better than that in the retro market, believe me. And, as you may have noticed, I have a Japanese copy of the game as well. I was lucky enough to find this at an antique mall of all places. If I remember correctly, I paid like $7 for this, which was more than worth the price. I just adore the artwork here. Everything is so vibrant and pops out. It's impressive how it's able to cram so much of the game's imagery into one small rectangle. I honestly wouldn't mind having this as a poster. And I also find it incredibly interesting just looking at the early designs on display here. Everything is recognizable, yeah, but nothing here is quite one-to-one with how it looks now in the series. Bowser probably being the most off-model in this regard, his sprite in-game honestly resembling his current design more than this does. Mario himself does look pretty close to how he is today, aside from the colors of his shirt and overalls being swapped. Although to be fair, this does match up more with how he appears in the game, so it checks out. Overall, I definitely prefer this to the North American artwork, where Mario is about to die. Okay, I know I am far from the first person to point this out, but seriously, who signed off on this? You have our beloved Italian plumber from Brooklyn jumping right into a brick wall, which he will undoubtedly bounce off of and fall into the lava below. To be fair, you also have a duck about to be shot down underneath him, so I guess death was just the theme Nintendo of America was aiming for in 1985. Alrighty, I've been blabbering enough about the cover art. Time to cut to the chase and read the manual. I mean, really, how can you play this game without catching up on the plot and the characters? You're not gonna get very far, believe me. Let's set the scene by reading the game's story. Object of the game / game description. One day, the kingdom of the peaceful mushroom people was invaded by the Koopa, a tribe of turbos famous for their black magic. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people were turned into mere stones, bricks, and even field horsehair plants. What is that supposed to be, the piranha plants? And the mushroom kingdom fell into ruin. The only one who could undo the magic spell on the mushroom people and return them to their normal selves is the Princess Toadstool, daughter of the Mushroom King. Princess Toadstool. Okay, yeah, I know this little tidbit of Mario lore. Her name was always Princess Peach over in Japan, though for some asinine reason that was changed to Princess Toadstool when the game was localized in North America. I get that she's the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, but still, who honestly thought that Toadstool was a better name than Peach? And this name change would stick all the way to Super Mario 64.
Dear Mario, please come to the castle. I have baked a cake for you. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool. Peach.
And from that moment, she would simply be known as Peach here as well, but that won't be until 96, time to get back to 85. Unfortunately, she is presently in the hands of the great Koopa Turtle King, Mario, the hero of the story. Maybe? What? Are we not the hero? This isn't some ambiguous game where you're playing as a vigilante or something. Okay, this is Mario we're talking about here. Why does it say maybe? Was MatPat right this whole time? Here's about the Mushroom People's plight and sets out on a quest to free the Mushroom Princess from the evil Koopa and restore the fallen kingdom of the Mushroom People. You are Mario, the apparently ambiguous hero of the story. It's up to you to save the Mushroom People from the black magic of the Koopa. Precautions. This is a high precision game. It should not be stored in places that are very hot or cold. Never hit or drop. Do not take it apart. You could have told me that one earlier. Okay, obviously, you don't have to read the story to play the game, but flipping through the manual is pretty neat, seeing hand-drawn illustrations of all the sprites, alongside pictures of Mario that do a pretty decent job of mimicking how he looks in-game. It's funny seeing how every screenshot here is obviously just taken with a camera pointed right at a CRT television. The description of the enemies lists the red and green Koopas separately, even though it's all in black and white, so you just kinda have to take their word for it. The toads are also called mushroom retainers here for some reason. The sprite of Princess Toadstool is blocked out with a question mark, kinda reminded me of how Boris Karloff was credited at the beginning of Frankenstein. Oh, and the last thing I want to bring up, at the beginning of the manual it warns you to not clean off the game's contacts with alcohol, even though that is literally the recommended way for cleaning out cartridges. I would bet money on the fact that they said this so that you would feel forced to buy one of the NES cleaning kits that they were selling at the time. Why use rubbing alcohol and Q-tips when you could simply give Nintendo more money? Alrighty, time to put down the manual and pick up the controller. I think mine's broken. Super Mario Bros. What's there to say about this game that hasn't been said already? Absolutely nothing. Why did I decide to make this video? Even to this very day, thousands upon thousands play this all-time classic. People love it so much that they skip through most of it in order to only beat the game in 5 minutes. Okay, we all know about the warp zones, allowing the player to skip to another world. They're so nice and convenient, and they make me feel sorry for all the rest of the levels. Absolutely nobody actually plays through the game today. They just use the warp zones on World 1-2 and World 4-2 and only experience 6 levels because of that. If you have a dead body you need to hide, put in one of the treetops in World 1-3. Ain't nobody gonna come across it anytime soon. And hey, I'm guilty myself. I have absolutely beaten the game a few times using this method. But the other stages deserve a chance to shine too. So let's sit down, turn on the console, clean out the cartridge thoroughly, turn on the console, and see why this game is such a timeless classic. I may need to reread this. It's always interesting going back to the first in a series, seeing what all has changed through the years and what has stayed the same. Probably the biggest play difference here is that whenever Mario is hit with the Fire Flower power-up, he regresses back to his normal form without going back to the Mushroom power-up like in Super Mario Bros. 3 and onwards. I actually remember being pretty shocked by that the first time I played the original game. I was just so used to how the power-ups worked in every other entry. It was the closest thing to portrayal I have ever felt from this series. It's also just kinda strange playing as Mario without hearing Charles Martinet's voice throughout the levels, and don't remind me of the fact that that's gonna be true for every Mario game from now on. First things first, a good game needs good controls, and Mario here controls great. He's a little stiff in comparison to how he feels in later entries. It's pretty hard to pull back in a jump after you already left the ground, but that's really the only nitpick I have with the controls here. As far as I'm concerned, this might as well have been perfection back in the mid-80s. Not only does he control better than a lot of other platformers from around this time, but he is leaps and bounds better than how he felt in Donkey Kong and the Mario Bros. Arcade game. So I have to give serious credit to Nintendo for really refining how Mario Jumpman Mario controls here. You hold B to run, that's a little speedrunning strat they don't want you to know about, and You press A to jump. There's a fair amount to see in this game, 4 levels to every world and 8 worlds in total, equaling 32 levels altogether. Yes, in fairness, that's a paltry amount compared to other games in the series, but in 1985, this truly must have felt like one of the biggest games ever. People were still coming off the heels of the Atari 2600, where the vast majority of its titles were single-screen arcade-style games. And even the ones you could actually beat wouldn't take you less than 5 minutes to do so. Heck, a lot of early NES games were also single-screen experiences. So to have such an expansive game as this back then must have been utterly mind-blowing. I wouldn't be surprised if first-time players thought that the boss at the end of World 1-4 was the end of the game, and were genuinely surprised to see it continue from there. It took me just under an hour to beat it all the way through, around 57 minutes altogether, blazing past most worlds in around 5 minutes thanks to my sick moves! Granted, there was one outlier in my playtime, but I'll bring that back up in a bit. And some of the later levels also took some extra time due to the fact that I was dying a lot more. But never because of any crappy design on the game's part. If you're unfamiliar with this era of gaming, a lot of NES titles were kinda stupidly hard, down to the point where you essentially had to be an expert player to even have a chance of beating them. Super Mario Bros. 2: The Lost Levels being an outstanding example of this. Mario 1, though, I have to give it credit for being challenging, though never too frustrating. The difficulty gradually rose throughout the game. There was never any point here where it seemed to spike all of a sudden. Though, of course, if the game is too hard for you, you can always nab some extra lives. Collecting 100 coins will move that life counter up by 1, though frankly 100%ing Super Mario 64 has given me nightmares about collecting that many coins, so instead I prefer to just nab one of mushrooms in these hidden blocks. There's one at the start of World 3-1 that I swear does not load in all the time. Forced me to jump around blindly and oh, there it goes. Yeah, whatever, we don't need it anyway. As I was saying, oh, come on. Oh, okay, I got it this time. As I'm sure you already know, at the end of World 3-1, you can score infinite lives due to this Koopa Troopa walking down the stairs before the flagpole. Knock out the first one and align yourself on the third step and simply jump up when... You gotta be kidding me. Okay, I'm not the best at doing this glitch, but you will eventually get it if you try enough times. And because this literally results in you getting infinite lives, don't worry too much about dying over and over trying to get it right. I wanted to see how many lives I could rack up, so I decided to keep at it until the time ran out. Alrighty, that's the end, and... Huh, even when you die with a fire flower, the game still uses the small Mario sprite falling off screen, just colored differently. I guess that makes sense. Most of the time, you're only gonna see this animation when you've been hit without a power-up, so I see... Wait, what? What?! Okay, so I actually didn't know that when you ran out of time, you get a game over. In fairness, that's not written anywhere in the manual, and the clock is generous enough to where I have never had this happen to me before. I kinda rightfully assumed that you'd only lose a life if the time ran out. Thankfully, I did know one little quirk about this game. Whenever you get a game over, simply press A and start at the same time, and it sends you back to the beginning of the world you died on. I don't much appreciate how the game hides the continue option from you, but hey, it's better than not having it at all. Before you ask, no, this is also not written in the manual. And in case you're curious, I am actually playing off my cartridge here, so no, save states were not an option. Although I'm starting to wish they were. It admittedly took me an embarrassing amount of tries to get the Koopa Troopa glitch to work again, growing slightly impatient along the way. But eventually I got the sequence down, this time quitting while I was ahead and ending the level with crown white square with blue dots amount of lives. This part right here was the outlier in my game time that I mentioned earlier. I have more footage of World 3-1 than any other level. I spent 12 minutes on this one stage in total, more time than I spent on the majority of the other worlds. Though it's worth it to ensure I never see this screen again. It's also fitting that I I got so many extra lives right before the most boring level in the game. I don't know what the devs were thinking with 3-2, it's just a flat plane with a few enemies sprinkled throughout, broken up by a couple of pitfalls. It's genuinely so bland that it downright feels unfinished, like they put in the landscape but forgot to put in the platforms or something. I guess this level is just here to allow the player to run about with the star power-up, wreaking havoc, leaving behind a trail of dead enemies. But there are many other stages that do that already, so having that as the level's only attraction is just kinda stupid. Granted though, I can thankfully say that 3-2 is an outlier when it comes to design here. Every other level actually does have something going on with it. I think my favorites are the treetop levels. They're the most visually interesting in the game, and some of the more challenging ones in terms of platforming. You got these seesaws that you gotta run across, though you can't stand on them too long, then you only have a registered trademark amount of lives. Oh, on World 3-3, it's actually possible to jump over the flagpole using this platform right here. Yeah, crud. Oh, come on. Okay, finally, I did it! I found a video of someone else doing it. Y'all, this is a really hard trick to pull off, and I don't really want to waste time on it like I did with the 1-up glitch. And throughout some levels, there are bonus areas that you can go down to. Just gotta wait for the piranha plants to get out of the way. I suppose they have a truce when they're both in the pipe. These areas don't really amount to much, only a handful of coins in them, with the occasional power-up here and there. Oh, and also every now and again, you'll get one like this, where you have to jump up top and then fall back down to reach the coins. The first time I played the game, I did not know this. I thought it was just impossible to reach up here, and that the coins were just a bit of trolling on Nintendo's part. Speaking of trolling, in World 5-2, I went down this pipe here, excited to explore another bonus area, only to feel the bitter coldness of betrayal when Mario was dropped into a water level. Game, how could you? Okay, to be fair, the game does have mercifully few underwater levels. World 2-2 and 7-2 are the only full ones in the game, with a couple of more water areas in other places. Apparently, Super Mario Bros. Was the first game to ever have underwater stages, starting the horrible tradition that would haunt players for decades to come. Okay, to be fair, they're really not that bad here. Just gotta avoid all of the aquatic life and be sure to not get sucked down into any of these pits. I did die a few times in World 7-2 thanks to bloodthirsty bloopers blocking my path. Eventually I did get past them though, and died to a Cheep Cheep that was just minding its own business. Okay, after that as I was saying, I got through the level just fine. By the way, the levels after the 2 water stages have Mario running across bridges over water as Cheep Cheep jump up to take him out. It's a nice bit of continuity between levels. I can admire the fact that the devs placed them together like this. Almost like the Cheep Cheep here are trying to take revenge on Mario after he just swam on through. Are there any other types of levels I'm forgetting to talk about? Oh yeah, the ones we're dying to get to throughout the game. At the end of every world, Mario comes across a castle to raid. These levels are, understandably, among the most challenging in the game. Some of them hurling more fire at you than the NES can handle, though with all of them you just avoid everything to reach the end. All of them, except for 3 that is, World 4-4, 7-4, and 8-4 respectively are mazes that you gotta find the right path to take, or the screen endlessly loops over and over again. 4-4 is the easiest to traverse. Just gotta take the upper pathway here, then go back down to the bottom there, do one more sick move for safety, and you're golden. 7-4 is certainly a bit trickier, with 2 hallways that you gotta get through. I actually got stuck for a few minutes here. I was worried that I was gonna run out of time trying to get through this level, now having a good reason to worry. Thankfully though, it does include a lava pit that you can drop down into to restart the level in case the clock ain't on your side. Okay, I know that looked like it was an accident, but it was intentional, guys! I swear I did it on purpose! Okay, that was an accident. With enough patience, though, you'll get through this one as well. Hello, Bowser.
So long, Bowser!
Alrighty, now that your confidence is up from completing 7-4, time for 8-4 to knock you back down to size with its downright cryptic level design. Throughout this castle, you gotta go down the right pipes to reach the end. to be honest here though, I have played this level many a times when I have beaten the game using the warp pipes. So I know the correct path like the back of my hand, but yeah, I would recommend looking up a guide for this one. It's a bit too easy to get lost in for its own good. And at the very end of it, it makes you go through another underwater area. Okay, to be honest with y'all, I always try my best to keep a fire flower on me to the very end because of this part right here. This pissing brother of hammer right at the very end. Placed just in the precise location to kill you right before you can end the game. Forget Bowser, this is the true final boss. So I like to keep the fire flower on me so I can knock him out without a sweat. However, I accidentally jumped into the piranha plant before this, so now, I'm not gonna lie, it is just pure luck if I beat the game. Now, I know what you're thinking. Man, Bowser sure looks good for someone who just got submerged in lava not 5 minutes ago. Okay, there actually is a story reason for why Bowser is at the end of every castle. For you see, he isn't. For the battles in the first 7 worlds, it's just one of Bowser's minions in disguise as the Koopa King. Or should I say, King of the Koopa. In fact, if you kill them with the fire flower, their true forms will drop down. You see? A justifiable reason for why all boss fights are exactly the same. Alright, to be fair, there are a few differences. Some of the later stages are certainly more fire-happy. The platforms above Bowser's head get harder and harder to reach until they're gone completely. And of course, the man himself starts tossing out a barrage of hammers at you as he spits out some sick backwards fireballs your way. Whatever, in all of them, the way to take out Bowser is the same. Touch the axe behind him to knock out the bridge he's standing on, and why would you keep that there?
Get away from that lever! You'll blow us all to atoms!
At the end of the first 7 castles, we come across a mushroom retainer who's thankful to be rescued, though is also happy to tell you that you ain't done yet as he flips you off. Okay, to be fair, on a CRT television, this would just look like a rounded hand. You were never meant to see this sprite in high definition. Is what I would say if they didn't show up in the manual like this. Nintendo knew what they were doing. Either way, at the end of the game, all of the ungrateful mushroom retainers are saved, and you rescue the... You know what? You can keep her. Why does she look like this? I get that this is an early NES game, and frankly none of the other sprites here have aged entirely well either, but why does she have Hasberg jaw? Well, she is royalty, so I guess that checks out. But seriously, what is up with her mouth? I guess she's supposed to have some nice plump lips, but I've always saw this sprite as her having her mouth opened at an awkward angle. Like she has lockjaw or something. Now I know why they kept her hidden in the manual. No one would want to rescue her if they knew what she looked like. This is the biggest case of catfishing in all of gaming. You know what? I was wrong earlier. Toadstool definitely fits her better. And no, in case you're curious, she doesn't look any better on a CRT television. It's almost like they designed the princess here thinking most players would never reach her. Like, come on, I know we're dealing with some pretty hefty limitations on the NES and everything, but it wouldn't have been that hard to make this sprite look a little better. Look! Done! Okay, maybe I'm harping on this too much. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and her eyes are only 2 pixels tall, and Mario's shrink every time he jumps. They're perfect for each other. And just like that, you've beaten the game. Princess Toadstool thanks you sincerely for rescuing her, and then tells you to do it again. I now know where the mushroom retainers got it from. I don't much care for how the ending here pretty directly breaks the 4th wall to bring up the second quest. It kinda undermines finishing the game in the first place and unintentionally makes Toadstool here look like a bit of a prick. Though I'm not gonna complain too much about it. This is still the era of a winner is you and congratulations. As far as I'm concerned, this was a top-notch conclusion for the time. And that's the end. The second quest just has the same levels with a few differences. It's really not worth talking about. So, at the end of the day, I have to say, Super Mario Bros. Has aged incredibly well. Nice and responsive controls, a variety of different worlds to explore, all the while offering a nice level of challenge that keeps the game fun while never being frustrating to play. Man, there's just nothing wrong with this game here, is there? Nothing that can't just be brushed off with it being an early NES game anyway. Right? Right?
Mamma mia!
Okay, sadly, there is one pretty major flaw here that I really can't ignore. Later in the game, it starts reusing stage designs, and by that I don't mean level concepts, landscapes, or even that they're a little too similar. I mean that the game straight up copy-paste entire levels from earlier worlds. World 5-3 is just 1-3, the castle of 5-4 is the same as the one from 2-4. The 6-4 castle is the same as the first one in the game, and 7-2-7-3 are copies of 2-2-2-3 respectively. Two copy and pasted levels back to back in the same order of the original stages. That's honestly pretty shameless. The copied levels only toss in a few more enemies and shrink some of the platforms for a bit of an extra challenge. Almost like it's trying to give you a taste of what the second quest is like. 5 levels out of 32 in total are repeated. You do the math, and that means a good 15.6% of this game is copied material. Look, I understand that we're dealing with some pretty strict hardware limitations here. So strict that the game can't even properly load in 5 or more sprites at a time. But I really just can't ignore this. If this was any other game, heck, any other game in the Mario franchise, people wouldn't excuse it. We would all rightfully call the game out for this, but because this is the first in the series, it's almost like it gets a pass for repeating level designs. As far as I'm concerned, this is the biggest flaw in the game. Not exactly a major one, but it is a smear on what is otherwise a really good platformer. I mean, come on, how hard would it have been to just make 5 new levels? You have 32 kilobytes to work with? That's only a kilobyte per level. How the pisticles did they fit this into 32 kilobytes? My recording of the first world alone came out to 70 megabytes. You can't do anything with 32 kilobytes. That's barely enough space for this small snippet of audio. Thank y'all for watching all the way to the end, and until next time, goodbye, y'all.